We've got a brawl happening this weekend. We've got Phil Steele in the building to get his thoughts on that matchup between West Virginia and Pitt, along with some of the other matchups in college football, including the Big 12, right here today on In the Gun.
You are now watching Believe.
RTG.
With special guest, Phil Steele.
Author of the College Football Bible.
He can see things before they happen. It's a Jedi trait.
All you gotta do is bet on the winner and you'll never lose.
Mountaineer Nation.
You are In the Gun.
Hey, a real pleasure being on. Thanks for having me on the In the Gun podcast.
Welcome back In the Gun. It's another edition of Phil Steele Friday. We're going to get to Phil's thoughts here in just a few moments after the break, but first we're going to talk some other games that probably not going to toss Phil's way, just to, again, be short on time here and not bog him down with a bunch of games that are probably going to be blowouts anyways. But before we do,
if you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed on YouTube to In the Gun and to ITG Clips. That's the best way to catch all our newest Mountaineer content hot off the press. And how about a quick shout out to J.R. Toothman and our friends at Toothman Ford? We all know that cars cost less in Grafton. Plus, let's give some love to Fortis and our good buddy Rick Lewis. For roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed, be sure to visit fortis.us.com. And a tip of the cap to Tim Johnston and his awesome crew at Johnston Equipment off I-79, exit 99 between Weston and Buchanan. And finally, the Book Exchange. For a limited time, when shopping online at bookexchangewv.com, be sure to enter promo code INTHEGUN20, that's 20, for an awesome savings of 20%. That's right, 20%.
Sure to stop in this Saturday. Again, stripe the stadium. Make sure you're planning accordingly. If you don't have the right attire, make sure you hit up the Book Exchange and use the code INTHEGUN20. It's a great savings. We're going to push that. I'm going to be using it on Saturday, so make sure you take advantage of that. Limited time only, right, Jed?
Yeah, 20% off. You can use it online, bookexchangewv.com, in the gun 2020, or you can be brick and mortar in person saying, hey, I should check out the Book Exchange. By the way, I watch In the Gun. I want to use the code In the Gun 20 to save 20%. So it's a chunky savings.
It definitely is. And so it's going to be a lot of fun this weekend, and got the Backyard Brawl coming to town. It's the final one, and if you're thinking about getting rid of your tickets, think twice. It's the last time for the next few years, so you don't want to miss out on this, understanding the circumstances, but they need you. So, all right, let's go and talk some of these games that we're not going to talk with Phil here. Northwestern State at Cincinnati, and this was one that I mentioned yesterday. I kind of thought I was going to use as my offense of the week in the Big 12. Cincinnati's not been able to really get it much of anything going. I feel like they're due, and this is a really good opponent to do that against. Northwestern's defense is, well, what you would expect. So I don't think this is going to be entirely close, but we'll have to see.
Of course, Brendan Sorsby for Cincinnati. I picked them in the opener as my offense to throw for the most yards, and they threw like it was the Stone Age. I think for 60 yards or some crazy number. And then he comes out last week and throws for 300 and some odd yards in week 2. So yeah, I would expect Cincinnati to polish some things up against Northwestern State, take care of business. TCU hosting Abilene Christian. I think the schedule falls well for TCU. Of course, they had that win that got everybody's attention, blowing Chapel Bill out in such a big way in the opener on the road at North Carolina. And now they're hosting Abilene Christian, which, again, you'd think they'd refine things, work some things out, polish some things up, because next week they got the Skillet game, rivalry game against SMU. So I think the schedule falls well for Sonny Dykes and crew, and Josh Hoover's playing some really good football. And then, Sky, we got Arizona State, the last Big 12 game we'll talk about because Phil will cover the rest. Arizona State hosting Texas State. Now, it's a 2-0 Texas State game, Texas State team, but Arizona State, I do sense, and I like what they're about. I'm a big Kenny Dillingham guy, but they're not what they were a year ago.
No.
Sam Leavitt can mask some deficiencies because he's just a special football player at quarterback. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Texas State's a threat to them in
They
the
can score.
desert or not. They could score. So I think Arizona State's going to come in ticked off and take care of business against Texas State. And then there were a handful of interesting top 25 matchups I just wanted to take a peek at. They're not necessarily matchups of two top 25 teams, but they involve ranked teams. Wisconsin at 2-0 is on the road at a Bama team that's somehow still number 19 in the country. Uh, the Bama's laying a big line, but if you remember last year, Alabama went on the road up to Camp Randall and blew the doors off Wisconsin. I think this is a big game for Luke Fickell. They took care of business as they should against lesser competition, starting 2-0, but now on the road at Alabama. Again, they're a heavy, heavy underdog, but if he can find a way to work some magic and keep the things interesting into the fourth quarter, and somehow maybe pull a major upset, this would do huge things for Luke Fickell, and I really think he needs that. But I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Kalen DeBoer too. I mean, how many times has he lost at Alabama already as double-digit favorite? So that's something. I mean, that fan base is already ready to pay the buyout.
and Clemson at number 12 in the country, sitting at 1-1, is on the road at Georgia Tech. And they're a slight favorite, and I think that's dangerous for the Tigers. That's a tough environment. That's a good Georgia Tech football team. And then Vandy, if you ask Vandy, I don't know if they can be beaten, right? But they were down to Virginia Tech, and they came back and blew the doors off Virginia Tech. They're on the road to a number 11 South Carolina team. The Gamecocks, I saw it around 5.5. The Gamecocks were favored, but I don't know. That might get interesting too. I mean, that's an interesting game at Williams-Brice Stadium. Vandy coming in. If Vandy could come in there, and the same thing I just said about Luke Fickell in Wisconsin. Of course, it's a much tighter game supposed to be, but if Vandy can come in there and steal one from South Carolina, and all of a sudden there's some buzz in Nashville, they'll be sitting there at 3-0. But let's see if that happens.
Yeah, they'll be getting ready for the college football playoff after this weekend. So.
Oh yeah, they'll be hanging their UCF national championship banner.
Exactly, Diego Pavia, the man that started all this craziness. For those of you who don't know, with the whole waiver situation. So there you have it. Some of the games we are obviously not going to discuss with Phil, but when we do get with Phil, we're going to talk some Big 12, some interesting top 25 matchups, and we'll get his thoughts on the Backyard Brawl as well. So hang tight. On the other side, we'll have Phil Steele.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
Back in the gun here with Phil Steele on Phil Steele Friday. We've got a lot of action to talk about, and we'll wrap it up with him on this segment, of course, with his thoughts on the Backyard Brawl, the 108th edition. Phil, welcome back to the program, and promote anything you got going on for us this week.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, you can right now take the Phil Steele Plus Tour with selections. It's up and available. Real nice week last week. Went 3-2 on the selections. Tough loss with Kansas. Missouri getting that 66-yard touchdown run when they could have run out the clock at the end. But the quick hitters went 4-2. The FCS plays went 3-1. So a really nice winning week across the board. And all the plays are free. Get them right now at philsteele.com. And that's the Phil Steele Plus Tour with selections.
Love it. Beautiful. So let's go ahead and get started here with some top 25 action in the SEC. No college game day in Morgantown, but they are headed to Tennessee in their matchup against Georgia. And Phil, this is a really interesting game because in years past, this is a game you kind of look at as it's going to be good, but then Georgia always ends up finding a way. I don't know. I'm starting to buy the Kool-Aid on this Tennessee team with Joey Aguilar and company. And even though they're the dog here, I kind of like them. Do you feel like the dog's going to be barking here?
Yeah, this is one where I'm arguing with my computer a little bit. My computer likes Tennessee based on the results so far. Tennessee's offense put up big numbers, and Georgia's gone through the motions, as they always do, as a big favorite. But go back to like the Marshall game, for example. At the end of the third quarter, Marshall had one first down, and that just shows you how dominant this Georgia defense could be. They don't have the big names of years past, but they are an outstanding defense. If you look at Kirby Smart's record as a home favorite, it's extremely poor. He plays everybody. He doesn't go for the throat. But now this is his type of game. He's a great away favorite, and the spread is pretty cheap at 3.5. And you look at Tennessee's offense, it's been booming. But Syracuse lost the majority of their defense from last year. They have a weak defense. East Tennessee State, they have a weak defense. And the thing with Joey Aguilar is so far he's got 5 touchdown passes, no interceptions. But last year we saw it at App State. He led the FBS with 14 interceptions, and now he likes to put the ball up there, and Georgia's got a really good secondary. I think Georgia gets a couple of picks, and then you touched on it, Schuyler. The series history, this is just all Georgia. They don't just win this thing. They dominate. They've won the last 8, probably by an average like 20 points per game. So I think this is a game that now Kirby Smart's in his wheelhouse. He's an away favorite. He's not that home favorite where he struggles to get an impressive win. And now Georgia's so much, nobody's talking about Georgia this year. And yet I think Georgia's a legitimate playoff team. I think they win the SEC, and I think they win this game here. So my computer leans with Tennessee, but I like Georgia.
Interesting.
We got South Florida, West Virginia's old Big East counterpart, on the road at Miami. Now, interesting things playing out down in Tampa with the Bulls. New staff a few years ago. They've strung together a couple 7-win seasons. I think one of the turning points might have been that 45-0 bowl win against Syracuse a few years ago. But now they're on the road against a very talented Miami Hurricanes team. Of course, last year it wasn't much of a game. 50-15, the Canes were all over them. Laying a big line on this one. Last I saw it was 16.5. What say you about the Bulls on the road at Miami?
Yeah, and this is one where I had thought the line would move down. I thought the public would be all over South Florida after winning a couple of games against ranked teams. Opened up at like 15. It's all the way up to 17.5 right now. So clearly the money's coming in on Miami of Florida in this one. And you see why. You go back to the opening game of the season for South Florida while they beat Boise 34-7. I thought Boise was the better team, but for the good 2.5 quarters of that game. And last week, man, Florida made so many critical mistakes. They just shot themselves in the foot left and right. They did play a really good game against Florida. But now, how much do you have left in your tank taking on your third straight ranked team? Meanwhile, Miami last week, Cristobal said one of the reasons they only won 45-3 is Bethune-Cookman took the air out of the ball. They had very limited possessions in the game, basically scored a touchdown every time they had the ball, but they just didn't have that many possessions. They're at home. They'll be fired up for this one. They do have Florida on deck. I was hoping, like I said, to get this one about 14 because I've got Miami winning by, 17-21, but now the spread's up at 17.5. I'll probably just sit back and watch it, but I like Miami to win this game.
Phil, we've got Texas A&M making the trip to South Bend, the second part of this series, which was played firstly last year down in College Station. Notre Dame, obviously with the loss to Miami, they couldn't get Jeremiah Love going, only 33 yards on 10 carries in that game. Feels like it could be a get-right game for him. A&M gave up over 200 yards in the opener to UTSA. I like this Marcel Reed kid, though. What do you think?
Yeah, and A&M is a team that I think is a legitimate contender in the SEC. They've got an outstanding offensive line. They've got Marcel Reed. They've got Moss, Owens, and Smith in the backfield. And while none of the running backs has 100 yards this year, each of them average over 6 yards per carry. It shows you how good their run game is. and Elko's running the defense, so you know they're going to be good. But I think Notre Dame needs to prove something here. They're off a loss, off a bye. They're at home. They've got an outstanding record against ranked teams at home, and they're also a very solid home favorite. So they got a couple of good things going for them. They were able to go into College Station last year and come out of there with a win. That's a very hostile environment. I like now the spread's 6.5 in this one. I actually like Notre Dame by like a touchdown. So I'm saying as long as the number's less than a touchdown, take Notre Dame in this one. If it gets to be a touchdown or more, then I'd pass on it. But I like the spread right now at 6.5 because I've got the Irish by a touchdown.
Well, we're jumping into the Big 12. You got Houston at home. Very impressed by that Cougars defense, despite in the offseason losing their coordinator to Texas Tech, got poached away. Coming off a rivalry win against Rice in convincing fashion. Meanwhile, you got Colorado coming to town at 1-1. Interesting dynamic with Colorado. They've announced Ryan Staub as their starter at quarterback. That means he's going to start over five-star Julian Lewis, over Liberty transfer, much heralded Liberty transfer, Caden Salter. What do you see playing out with the Buffaloes on the road at Houston?
Yeah, and I was concerned as well, Jed, about Houston losing their defensive coordinator because last year's defense was really good. Despite Houston's record of 4-8 last year, they only allowed 325 yards per game. They actually held opponents to 75 yards per game below their season average, which was number 13 in the country. And this year, they picked right up where they left off. They shut down SF Austin, and then going against the option of Rice, they did a great job last week, holding them at 228 yards. And now this year, Houston has an offense. They didn't have that last year. They have a quarterback in Connor Wegman who's completing 65% with a 4.0 ratio. They struggled in the pass game last year. And I love the pickup of Dean Connors. I thought Dean Connors was Rice's best player last year, the last couple of years, actually. And they bring him over from Rice. He's got 182 yards rushing and 6.5 yards per carry. I don't like the fact that Colorado is struggling as to who our quarterback is. I know Ryan Staub led a couple of TD drives last week, but you would have thought it would have been Salter or Lewis. So I think Colorado's in a little bit of disarray right now. Houston's at home, fired up. I love what Willie Fritz is doing there. I definitely like Houston minus the points in that one.
Phil, this is a really intriguing matchup because I think coming into the season, a lot of people, including myself, were really high on Kansas State and thought that this was going to be another great year for them. And it's been a struggle so far. Obviously, they lost to Iowa State. Last week, they lose to Army. 2 weeks ago, they struggled to beat North Dakota. And now they got to hit the road to Tucson to take on Arizona, who is undefeated but hasn't really played much competition yet. So what do you make of this game, and can K-State bounce back and get on track?
Yeah, I think K-State's got more talent. And, if you look at their games this year, I thought they played a good game against Iowa State. I thought they played a good game against Army. Remember, they were winning 13-0 late in the half. And then Army, the key play of that game is Army going for it on 4th and goal at the 2 on the last play of the half. I mean, you don't get that. You're down 13-0 at the half, and you have no chance. And they get the touchdown, and then I think they converted 6 of 7 fourth downs during the course of the game to keep them in it, including 1 3rd and long, or 4th and long, which was pretty impressive. But I also like this Arizona team. Arizona under Brett Brennan last year is a completely rebuilt team. He took over late. They lost a lot of transfers late. Noah Fafita last year basically looked for Tatorian McMillan every play, and now they've got a more balanced receiving core this year. I do think Arizona's a much improved team and at home. So I rate this one a toss-up. I can make a case for Arizona. I can make a case for K-State. I think we'll learn a lot about both teams in this week's game.
I like the way he's talking. I picked Arizona for most passing yards this week, Phil. But okay, meanwhile, you got Baylor at home. Offensively humming as you would expect with Jake Spavital, Sawyer Robinson, great game last week in the win over SMU. Defensively, some issues to solve. Out of the gates, 38 they allowed against Auburn last week, 45 in the win. They're hosting the Samford Bulldogs. Now, be careful, Phil. I'm a former Samford Bulldog. That's on the long list of colleges that I played at, okay? But Samford 0-2 coming into Waco. What do you see shaking out here? Is Baylor going to polish things up on the defensive side?
Yeah, you would think so. You look at Samford's first 2 games this year. They lost to West Georgia 34-3, and then the Citadel 40-13. But it's interesting. Even in the loss to the Citadel, they actually had the yardage edge for the game. They've got in that one. So I I look at this game as Baylor should be able to roll offensively, and I think defensively they need to gain some confidence, especially with Arizona State on deck. So I think we're going to see Baylor's defense play exceptionally well this week, better than it has the first 2 weeks. It's a feel-good game, and yeah, Baylor rolls this one up bigs.
Phil, we got Texas Tech and Oregon State. The Red Raiders have just been smacking people left and right here in the first couple of weeks. Obviously, it's Arkansas, Pine Bluff, all due respect, and maybe one of the worst teams in the FBS in Kent State. A little bit better test this weekend, but Oregon State's also really struggling. How big of a gap do you see in this game?
Yeah, the thing is, Texas Tech didn't cover last week.
Yeah,
Kent State actually
Crazy.
covered, and that was Texas Tech putting on a touchdown late to make it 62-14. So they are laying some inflated spreads. And this week I actually lean with Oregon State, and let me tell you why. They are off a huge misleading final last week against Fresno State. While they lost the game, and you see they lost the game by 9, so you say, well, it wasn't competitive. Oregon State actually had 30 first downs to Fresno State's 15. Oregon State lost their long snapper prior to the game. They had a bad snap on a punt go for a Fresno touchdown. They had a bad snap where the punter went to a knee. That set up a Fresno score. They went for it on fourth down because of the snapping issues a little bit, and also because Bray likes to go for it on fourth down. Not on fourth down. They went for 2 points, I should say, 4 times. Came up 0 for 4 getting those 2-point conversions. Still, at the end of the game, Oregon State leads 27-26 with a minute to go. And then Fresno State goes down, kicks the game-winning field goal, and then with like seconds left in the game, gets an interception return for a touchdown. You look at the scoreboard, you say Fresno won this one easy. If you watch the game, Oregon State absolutely should have won the game had they converted on a 2-point conversion, had they not had the bad snaps, 30-15 first downs, and they were leading with a minute to go. So I think Oregon State keeps this one closer than expected. I still like Texas Tech to win, but how about Utah on deck? That's a pretty big game for Texas Tech.
Yeah, that sure is. Phil, Iowa State at number 14 in the country. Matt Campbell has things humming at 3-0. They're on the road at Arkansas State. Now, there might have been times in years past you would say this is a high risk environment for a power conference team coming in, but it seems like Arkansas State ages ago during the COVID year that they went into Kansas State and knocked off the Wildcats. Do you see Iowa State taking care of business on the road at Arkansas State? They're laying a big number.
Yeah, they're laying 20.5 in this one, but I actually like Iowa State. And talking to Coach Campbell after spring was over, one of his main concerns was surviving the Ireland thing, and how would they get through it? And I told him Brent Key said it's the second week after you get back, and they survived that test, even taking on Iowa. That big 54-yard field goal at the end got them through. And next week they have a bye. So what the heck? Let your hair down, go all out here this week. Now, they played Arkansas State last year. They have a defense in the 3-3-5, which is set up to stop the pass. And that's what Arkansas State does. And they beat Arkansas State handily. 31 down at the half, 52-7 was the final score. And this year's Arkansas State team, you look at them at the start of the year, and they've got back Jalen Rayner. They've got back their top running back, Jaquez Cross, and they've got back Corey Rucker, a wide receiver. So they're going to have an explosive offense. The problem was that they lost all 11 starters off the defensive side of the ball. Last week, Arkansas had 28 points in the first 10 minutes of the game, and it wasn't turnovers. They had 4 long drives in the first 10 minutes of the game, all for touchdowns to lead 28-0 in that one. And here's the thing with the offense for Arkansas State. Jaquez Cross, out for the year. And how about Corey Rucker? You expect a big year out of him. He had over 1,000 yards last year. He's got 5 catches in 2 games, and he didn't miss a game. He played in both games. He had 2 and 3 catches. He's got 79 yards in 2 games. So it's not the explosive offense you thought, and it is definitely the defense you thought. I like Iowa State to win this one big.
The Utes going on the road to Laramie to take on the Wyoming Cowboys. And, Utah's been cruising pretty early here. Wyoming seems to be a team that you kind of don't want to play either. It seems like they always kind of drag into rock fights. I don't know that they're going to be successful in doing so in this one, but you always got to be careful here, Phil. So what do you think between Utah and Wyoming?
Yeah, I think the old Wyoming was definitely that under Craig Bowl. Jay Sawville, when I talk to him, always talks about, hey, we're going to be a little more explosive. We're going to open it up. We're going to go for fourth down more. And I think that makes it dangerous in a game like this. And, one of Wyoming's biggest edges being at home is the elevation. But hey, Utah plays in elevation, so they're used to it. That's not a big edge. And I'm going to say this right now, and I may be talking about this when we talk about the Texas Tech game next week, the West Virginia game, the Arizona State game. I like to play on streaks. And I see a streak building here for Utah. They have been absolutely dominant. Devin Dampier has given them an offense, something they didn't have last year. The defense has been dominant, just like last year. They're holding opponents to 208 yards per game below their season average already this year. Whittingham says they've got the best offensive line he's had in his 21 years. I'm just going to play Utah every single week until they actually lose a game. When you play on a streak, you can win many times. You lose only once. I think we see a streak building here this week. So I'm going to take Utah. I know they're laying like 21.5 on the road, but as mentioned, I don't think the altitude's a factor. I do think we have the much better team. And do keep in mind, last year, Devin Dampier, with a less supporting cast at New Mexico, put up 45 points on this Wyoming defense.
We all remember a couple years ago talking to you, Phil, when Texas Tech in their opener went into Laramie, and that altitude got them, and Wyoming snuck away with the win. But now, the reason everybody's here, the Backyard Brawl, West Virginia, Pitt, Morgantown, 3:30 Saturday afternoon. We wish it was under different circumstances, but we'll take it any way we can get it. They don't play again until 2029, so bragging rights for the next handful of years are on the line. West Virginia coming off a tough loss on the road at Athens. Pitt, of course, rolling at 2-0, coming in strong. Eli Holstein looks the part. Desmond Reed's playing well. Give it to us straight, Doc. We got a high number on the over. We got a pretty chunky number on the line. The line's been affected. Once it was announced that Jaheim White and Jaden Bray were out, that line swelled up even more. What do you see unfolding in the Backyard Brawl, Phil?
Yeah, the line was like 4.5, 5. Now it's all the way up to 7. I'm seeing it come down a little bit to 6.5. I do think Pitt is the better team. They're the more experienced team. They're not a completely rebuilt team like West Virginia is. As you mentioned, they've got Holstein. You remember last year for Pitt, in the first 7 games of the season, when Holstein was healthy, they were 7-0. Then Holstein got injured, basically played very little the final 6 games. He had an 0-2 ratio his final 6 games, and that's when Pitt went 0-6. Well, Holstein's back. Desmond Reed is back. And these guys don't know the rivalry. All these new players for West Virginia, you wonder how well they know this rivalry, the Backyard Brawl. And as you mentioned, White being out, Bray being out, and Pitt can have a very aggressive defense. I mean, they've only allowed 213 yards per game so far this year. They did get a late touchdown to cover against Central Michigan last week. And you think about that, and you think about the end of this game, would Narduzzi go for it? But I usually like to go with the rivalry dog, but I'm going to lean a little bit with Pitt this week, especially if the number's under 7. I think once you get to 7, then all of a sudden the rivalry dog factor comes in. But yeah, unfortunately, I like Pitt this week.
We're not going to give you too much crap for it, Phil. We understand. So before we get you out of here, more on the brawl too, because I think a lot of people are kind of down and out right now after the loss to Ohio. You only put up 10 points against a MAC team. You got the 2 injuries to Jaden Bray and Jaheim White. What is the one thing that you could tell West Virginia fans to still feel good about this season, but also maybe even this week? Why do you feel like there could be a chance that West Virginia can somehow pull off this win?
I would say Rich Rod. He has surprised me in the past. You take a look at Jacksonville State 2 years ago, completely rebuilt team, didn't expect anything from them. They got better as the season went on, and all of a sudden at the end of the year, they're in a bowl game, which really surprised me. So I would say it's the Rich Rod factor. To get all these players and get them to play together in this short period of time, I think is extremely difficult. But if there's any coach who can do it, it's Rich Rod. So that would be the one thing that I would hang my hat on.
Well, there you go, Mountaineer fans. Heard it from the man himself, Phil Steele. Phil, we appreciate your time as always, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. A lot of fun talking football with you guys again.
Sounds great. There he is, Phil Steele, college football expert. We'll have him back every week throughout the football season, and hang tight when we come back. Jed and I will make our picks for this week's game.
When the sun's just rising and the work won't wait, you need the equipment that works just as hard as you do. Johnson Equipment delivers power, performance, and reliability day in, day out. Whether you're plowing fields, hauling loads, or planting the future, our tractors are built to take it and then some. Strong, reliable, ready. 0% financing available for up to 84 months on select models.
Johnston Equipment, farming made easy.
Get all your Mountaineer gear in WVU apparel at the Book Exchange. They're the locally owned and operated retailer with more than 90 years of selling everything you need for game day and everything else you need to show you're the ultimate WVU fan. Shop at their 2 locations at downtown Morgantown or Evansdale on Pattison Drive, or online at bookexchangewv.com.
When shopping online at bookexchangewv.com, be sure to enter code INTHEGUN20 at checkout for an awesome savings of 20%. That's right, 20%.
Back in the gun, Jed Drenning, Schuyler Callihan here, and as we do every single week to close out our show here on Phil Steele Friday, we've got some ITG pick'ems to make here. Some over-unders usually is what we do here, but Jed will every now and then throw in a curveball. So what do you got for us here, Jedgar?
Well, let's recap what played out last week. In the Ohio game, our props were Jaheim over under 20.5 rush attempts.
Well,
we both took the over, and he was on course to do that with 6 carries in the first quarter for 40 yards. Unfortunately, we know what played out there.
I don't think we should take a loss for that. We'll wash it out.
I agree, and here's hoping Jaheim a full recovery. And then we picked Cam Vaughn over under 99.5 receiving yards. Once again, Jaden Bray was having a heck of a game until his injury, wishing him a full recovery. Cam ended up with 2 catches for 43 yards, so he was under. We both took the under, so we hit that. Now, here's the interesting one. More fans at the game, West Virginia or Ohio. We both took West Virginia. I'm going to give it to us. It was tough to tell. I mean, I even asked some other people who were there their opinions, and they kind of agreed. They said it might be a slight push to West Virginia, because I'm looking around the stadium. The structure of the stadium was interesting. They had independently seated
bleachers,
stands, bleachers, giant bleacher sections. And I'm looking over, and one of them is like all Ohio fans except the West Virginia band. And I'm looking over at another one, and I'm thinking, well, that's mostly West Virginia fans. And I'm looking at the other section. I'm like, well, that's kind of half and half. And I honestly don't know. And so if you want to call me out in the comments section, say, hey, I was there, and it wasn't even close. No way. It was a bunch more West Virginia, or maybe it was more Ohio. I could hear it either way. I thought it was close from the sidelines looking up. It appeared so to me. So we both took West Virginia to have more fans. I'm going to give us the slight edge, but trust me, I won't be offended if you don't agree. And please correct me if you got a better angle than me. But it was tough to tell. It was that close in my estimation? Okay, so moving on to this week's props in the Backyard Brawl. First one's pretty simple. Again, I already made my picks.
Over under 2.5 Pitt fans?
Over under. Will all 5 Pitt fans be there? Well, obviously they won't, because we got tickets back. Okay, this one's pretty easy. Who scores first, Pitt or West Virginia?
I mean, I feel like I have to go Pitt, but yeah, I'll go Pitt. I think the offense is going to still take some time to go. I don't see them coming out of the gates offensively, West Virginia that is, with answers right away. But I don't know. I think it comes down to a lot of who gets the ball first, because I could see if West Virginia maybe gets the ball first, maybe they script together a good opening drive and they find a way to at least get 3 on the board. So I'll go Pitt, but I don't feel confident about it.
I flipped mine to make it interesting. I had Pitt, but I'm going to go West Virginia. I do think it kind of comes down to a coin toss. We'll probably defer if we win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd rather see a kickoff at the beginning of the game.
I think we'll feed off the energy of the crowd enough. If you remember how this played out, and we were talking with Wes about this last night. Pitt took the opening drive the last time in Morgantown, and without throwing the football, drove the length of the field by simply running the football. I don't know if Zach Alley's going to allow that to happen. So
right.
I don't know. The energy of that crowd, I think, is something that we're going to have to keep throwing some kerosene on throughout the course of the night. So if you want to feed the crowd an early lead's one way to do it. I'd like to think West Virginia is going to find a way to do that. So I'll go with the Mountaineers.
That's what I think would be beneficial, to have the the kick to be kicking off first because you know you can put your defense out there, feel pretty good about it, get the crowd juiced up, have your offense some time to kind of understand what's going on, and then you can go.
Yeah, we have a football savvy crowd, right? So they're going to understand we got the ball, tone it down. When they got the ball, light it up. So nothing will be better than Pitt starting the game with the ball, coming out of that
Yes.
pregame and that environment and all that energy. So to keep that rolling into Pitt's first offensive possession would be nice. But okay, the second one, there's no caveats. Unfortunately, it's pretty simple. And this is not a question I thought I'd be able to ask because it would be too easy before this week. And now it's no
Okay.
longer too easy. And it's pretty basic. Who will be Daview's leading rusher?
Oh gosh.
See, how simple has that been before?
Yeah.
Nothing simple anymore.
I mean, like you mentioned yesterday, I mean, we could throw a quarterback in there and it wouldn't be crazy. Now,
Yep. Yep.
maybe Rodney Gallagher. Like I said, maybe he busts a jet sweep for 40 some yards, and I don't know. I'll go. I'll go Sincere Bowers.
You know, it's funny. I had Bowers, but I'll switch it. Let's go. uh,
Ty Edwards, maybe Dior.
well, yeah, I was thinking quarterback too. I'll give some love to Clay Ash.
Okay.
I'll do that. You know,
You mean Cam Scatterboo?
Cam Scatterboo. Yeah, yeah, Cam Scatterboo. According to Pat Narduzzi, Clay Ash is a hard nosed kid. He's going to give you everything. So, yeah, why not? I'll give some love to Clay Ash. Okay, now here's the final one. I was tinkering with some different things. I was even going to do something along the lines of over under on or excuse me, could West Virginia hold Pitt under a certain yards per play attempt? But nobody can really track that during the game. Let's make it interesting, more something you can track. Uh, because they're when you look at their non-conference games, nobody's held them under 6 yards. Matter of fact, West Virginia held them to the lowest at 6.4 with Eli Holstein the last couple of years as the starter in their non-league game. But let's go with this. The last time they were in Morgantown, it was obviously a slugfest, 17-6. Both teams struggled to get to 200 yards offensively. 23 total points in the game. People are expecting, at least the odds makers are expecting, if you look at the line for the over-under, a lot more scoring in this one. It's in the 50s, depending on where you look. But we don't know the nature of how that unfolds. Is it a tale of two halves, or is it consistently that throughout the course of 60 minutes? So I'm going to say first half over-under, 23 and a half.
Oh, ooh. I'll go. I'll go under. I think
Okay.
again with West Virginia's issues offensively, I mean, you've got to find some answers. I just don't know that you're going to find them right away, especially with this front that Pittsburgh has. And I think too with Pitt, like we talked about in the preview, yeah, they look good against Central Michigan and Duquesne, but at Central Michigan and Duquesne, that's not Zach Alley's defense. And I think what they've got going on there is pretty good. And I love the stat that you threw out yesterday, also about the missed tackles and how Zach Alley the following week they typically tackle better. I think you're going to see this be a game where hats are flying to the ball and they understand that they can't let this thing get away from them early. And I think the crowd's going to play a factor. And I think it's going to be a game at half. I think it's going to be really low scoring.
Interesting. A lot of considerations here. Vegas is very rarely way off. And the only thing more infrequent than Vegas being way off is Vegas being way off with the same team 2 times in a row.
Yeah.
So when I look at that, Vegas last week with West Virginia, Ohio was way off with its over under.
Mm-hmm.
What was it, around 60?
60
Way
and a
off.
half, yeah.
Okay. And we ended up at 27. So that tells me, well, of course, they couldn't forecast the injury to Jaheim. That impacted that. But they also can't get a very good read on West Virginia, but it's going to improve each week. The read on West Virginia is going to improve each week. So I can't imagine with this line being in the 50s, Vegas is going to be way off again. So assuming Vegas isn't way off and we're looking at a game that reaches collective scoring into the 50s, I don't think most of it's going to come in the second half. I think West Virginia, I looked it up the other day, is one of 13 teams to not allow a point so far in the second half.
Yep.
Zach Alley does a good job of calibrating on the run after seeing what he's seeing, even between series, especially with the iPads. He talks about it all the time, even though he claims it's an advantage for the offense. I claim if you're a guy like Zach Alley, you find an advantage in just about anything, including that, because he's that sharp. So if the scoring is going to approach that number in the 50s, I'm going to have to say most of it's going to take place in the first half because I don't see Zach Alley allowing them to run wild in the second half. Uh, so I'll take the over for that reason, if that makes sense. And then we settle in and kind of figure things out for the balance of the final 30 minutes. But let's see. And the other thing is, part of it's a faith in Rich. Yeah, we're shorthanded. Yeah, we're up against it from a personnel standpoint with what we lost, and you have to find answers and find them quickly. He doesn't want another offensive performance like we had last week.
No.
Now, as to whether or not we're built to overcome it out of the gates and figure it out early, we'll see. But these are the reasons I'm going to go ahead and take the over that I created. I don't know what Vegas's over is. I have no idea.
Yeah.
This is the ITG over for fun. I don't know what their over is, but I'm going to take the over 23.5 in the first half.
Honestly, and that's one thing that I think you can kind of look at the situation with the glass half full approach is that they've now had a week to know that they're not going to have Jaheim White and Jaden Bray, so they can actually prepare to do that instead of trying to do it on the fly. So that part of it makes you feel a little better. Probably not much, but Jed, I also I'm interested in your opinion on this too because I don't really know which way I want to feel about it. Do you want this game to be, I wouldn't say an up and down drag race, but you want your offense to go and score a bunch of points and find some rhythm? You know Pitt's going to play fast as well. Do you want it to kind of be that type of game where you're playing in the 30s, or do you want to try and find it to, try to bring him into that rock fight like you did 2 years ago? Even though it's probably not going to happen with Pitt's offense, but can you get into a low-scoring, low 20s type of game? Is that where they want to be?
You mean, is that where West Virginia wants to be?
Where does West Virginia ideally want this game to be?
That's a fair question because let's assume for a second it goes the other way and it's a shootout. Well, if it's a shootout, you know what that immediately means?
Your strength
we found a lot of offensive answers that we weren't expecting pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So it will be good news in that sense. And in either situation, I would lean back to the same type of thing. I could see in a shootout game. I always used to say, like, when Gary Patterson embraced wide open offense and finally said, an old school defensive guru who liked to win 13-10 slugfests, and that's all he wanted to do. When he finally came around to the notion of saying it's okay to win 45-38, I said the Big 12 better watch out. And that was early during their Big 12 years. And shortly after that, they won the Big 12, or at least won a share of it. But, and the reason saying that is, okay, if a guy like that understands the value of it's okay to win shootouts, he can still steal possessions in those shootouts, steal critical turnovers. And that's another thing Zach Alley can do. So if that's the type of game you want to find yourself in, those shootouts, those 38-34s, 41-38s, they come down to a critical turnover in the fourth quarter very often.
Right.
And I'm always going to defer to a Zach Alley defense to be the defense creating that critical turnover in that type of game. So I'm not sure which I'd feel more comfortable with. I mean, on the one hand, like I said, if it's a shootout, all of a sudden the good news is, wow, the silver lining, we found some offensive answers. We had some dudes step up and fill that void, which you hope will happen. I'm confident will happen, but I don't know the timeline on it happening.
Exactly.
Fill the void left by Jaheim and Jaden Bray. And the timeline would all of a sudden be shortened extensively if we come out in a shootout because we got guys making plays. Cam Vaughn's probably lighting it up. The tight end room comes alive. Somebody on the other side, whether it's Preston or Justin Smith-Brown, whoever it might be. And that also means those backs have come alive. And it also means the quarterback room is contributing. So you would have a lot of good things happening that didn't happen a week ago in Athens. So I expect those good things to happen at some point. I just don't know when. That would mean it happened quickly. So I don't know. I wouldn't mind a shootout because I trust Zach Alley to steal a turnover or two late going to win a game like that. And it would be good news offensively. So I would take that.
Yeah, I think I'd probably side with you there too, because more than anything, you probably want to see some fireworks offensively because Zach Alley's going to figure it out. Even if they have a so-called bad game and they give up 30-plus points, it's not going to be the theme moving forward. They're going to find answers over there.
Not.
Yeah, and
it would also be a great sign for the West Virginia offensive line against a formidable Pitt front seven.
Yeah,
if you can get to a point where you're offensively making your way into a shutout, that means the offensive line's getting some push against a front seven that I have a lot of respect for.
Yeah, I was leaning towards the rock fight, but I think you pushed me into the other side, so I think that's where I'm going to land. So there you go, another week of ITG in the books. It's the Backyard Brawl this Saturday at 3:30. Make sure to stop out also by the Peach Lot, Wes's Tailgate. Big O will be there. I'm going to try to make it over there at some point, and maybe you'll get to hang out with all of us. I know Jed's got some pregame obligations, of course, but we'll see if we can make it all happen. And as always, be an ear and tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast. Thank you, buddy. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Take care. Have fun at the Brawl. And you've been in the gun.
ITG.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback,
be sure to follow us on X at In the Gun Podcast.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.